My mother never learned to text. This is not a complaint. It's just who she was. She was born in 1946 in Jackson County, Mississippi, and she came of age with rotary phones and party lines and the understanding that a telephone call was a significant thing that deserved your full attention. Texting, she said, was for people who didn't have the courtesy to speak, but she had mastered voicemails. She left long ones. Detailed ones. The kind that covered everything she'd been meaning to tell you since the last time you'd spoken. All in one 4-minute message delivered in her unhurried Mississippi drawl. She died on a Wednesday in October 2020. In the 3 years that followed, I deleted her old voicemails one at a time, not all at once. I couldn't do it all at once. Just one, whenever I felt ready, until I was down to the last one. The last one was different from the others. The notification said unsent, recorded October 14th, 2020. Duration, 4 minutes, 27 seconds. October 14th, 2020, was the morning she died. She had recorded a voicemail the morning she died and never sent it. I almost deleted it without listening. I almost did. The Red State Horror presents A True Story, the voicemail. Let's start with the Part 1, Dorothy, Jackson County, Mississippi, the woman before the voicemail. I want to tell you who she was before I tell you what she said. Because if you don't understand her first, the rest of this is just a strange story. And it's not a strange story. It's her story. And she was not a strange woman. My mother's name was Dorothy Ann Wilkes. Born and raised in Jackson County, she married my father in 1968 and had me in 1971 and my sister Patrice in 1974. She taught elementary school for 31 years. She kept a vegetable garden that was the envy of the neighborhood. She made cornbread from memory and would not hear of a recipe. She was the kind of person who remembered every birthday without writing them down and who always picked up the phone when you called, no matter what time it was. She was also the kind of person who had rules, not many and not arbitrary. She was not an arbitrary woman, but the rules she had, she kept, and she expected you to keep them too without a lot of explanation. You clean up after yourself. You don't raise your voice. You say what you mean, and you mean what you say. And you do not go outside after dark. That was the rule I grew up with. Not a scary rule, not presented dramatically, just a fact of the house. The same as taking your shoes off at the door or saying grace before supper. After dark, you come inside. She never made a production of it. She never threatened consequences. She just expected it. And we did it. The way children do the things their parents expect, without questioning why. I'm 43 years old now. I followed that rule until I left for college, and I never once asked her to explain it. She died on October 14th, 2020. She was 74 years old. Heart failure is sudden, the way it sometimes goes. She was in the house when it happened. The neighbor found her the next morning. I drove down from Memphis that afternoon. I spent a week in Jackson County, dealing with the things that need dealing with after you lose someone, and then I went back to Memphis, and I tried to figure out how to live without the person who had always picked up the phone. She had left me 31 voicemails over the years. I know that number because I counted them when I started deleting them, 9 months after she died, when I felt ready to begin. 1 per month, on average, for the last 3 years of her life. Each one took 4 to 6 minutes, covering whatever was on her mind. The garden. The neighbors. Whether I was eating right. The book she'd just finished. How much she missed my father, who had been gone since 2009. Ordinary things. Her voice, which I can still hear completely in my head, was unhurried and certain. I deleted them slowly, one at a time. Over 2 years. Until I got to the last one. Part 2. October 14th, 2020. The voicemail she never sent. The notification was different from the others, in a way I almost didn't notice. All of her other voicemails had come through normally. They showed up in my voicemail inbox the moment she sent them, with the timestamp of when she'd called. This one wasn't in my inbox. It was in a section of my phone's voicemail app I'd never paid attention to. A queue of messages that had failed to send, and that were held in some intermediate state between recorded and delivered. It had been sitting there for 3 years, waiting for a connection that never came. The timestamp read, recorded 7:42 a.m., October 14th, 2020. She died sometime that afternoon. The neighbor found her the following morning. She had been alive at 7:42 in the morning. She had sat down somewhere in that house and recorded a voicemail for me. Whatever connection issue kept it from sending had held it in that queue, invisible to me, for 3 full years. I sat in my car in a parking lot in Memphis on a Tuesday afternoon in October 2023, and I stared at that notification for a long time. I almost deleted it. My thumb hovered over the delete option for what felt like a very long time. I had a reason. I knew listening to a voicemail recorded the morning she died, a voicemail from someone who was going to die later that same day without knowing it, was going to be one of the harder things I'd ever done. I knew what her voice would sound like. Completely normal, completely present, completely unaware. The voice of someone who expected to be alive tomorrow. I pressed play. She sounded exactly the way I'd known she would. Unhurried, clear. Good morning, baby. I know you're probably at work, but I just had a couple things I wanted to tell you. The first 3 minutes were exactly what I expected. She'd been in the garden that morning. The late squash was coming in better than expected. She'd heard from Patrice the week before about her daughter's school situation. She had an opinion about it. She shared the opinion at length. She said she'd been sleeping better since she started taking that magnesium someone had recommended. Did she tell me about that already? Ordinary. Completely ordinary. Her voice filling my car in a Memphis parking lot 3 years after she'd last been alive to fill anything with it. And then, at the 3-minute and 12-second mark, she said, "Oh, and the other thing. That willow tree at the back of the yard. You know, that old willow that's been there since before your father and I bought the place. I've been meaning to have it looked at. There's something going on around the base of it that I want to understand better. Been there a few weeks now. Nothing alarming, I don't want you to worry about it. I'm gonna go have another look at it tonight, after supper." She paused for a moment. When she continued, her voice was slightly different. Not frightened. Just chosen, like she was deciding exactly what to say. "I probably shouldn't have brought that up. There's nothing for you to do about it from up there anyway. I'll sort it out. You know how I am." And then, in the completely ordinary voice she used to close every voicemail she ever left me, "I love you so much, baby. Call me when you get a minute." 4 minutes, 27 seconds. End of message. I sat in that parking lot for 40 minutes. She had gone to look at the willow tree that evening. The evening she died, the neighbor found her inside the house the next morning. She had not fallen outside. Whatever happened, it happened inside. But she had gone to look at that tree. And then she had come back in. And then she had died. I didn't know any of that when I was growing up. I didn't know the willow tree was anything but a willow tree. I drove to Jackson County the following weekend. Part 3. The Willow Tree. Jackson County, Mississippi. What had been around the base? My sister Patrice had been maintaining the property since our mother passed. She hadn't sold it. Neither of us was ready for that, and she drove down from Hattiesburg once a month to keep it up. She met me there on a Saturday morning with coffee and the spare key, and she didn't ask why I was there, because Patrice is the kind of person who knows when to ask and when to just hand you the coffee. I walked the yard first. The garden was overgrown in the way that gardens go when the person who loved them is gone, but the bones of it were still there. Still organized the way our mother organized everything. And at the back of the yard, past the garden, past the old fence post she'd been meaning to replace for 20 years, the willow. It's a large tree. Old. The kind of willow that has been growing in one spot for long enough that it seems like part of the landscape rather than a thing that was planted by someone. The hanging branches reach all the way to the ground on all sides, making a kind of curtained space underneath where the grass is thin and pale from the shade. I pushed through the branches and went inside that curtained space. The ground around the base of the trunk was different from the ground outside. Softer, more worked, like soil that had been pressed repeatedly over time. Not in an agricultural way. There was no pattern you'd make if you were gardening or aerating. Just soft, as if significant weight had been applied to it, regularly, for a long period. There were marks at the base of the trunk itself. Not on the bark high up, at the very base, where the roots start to emerge from the ground. Low marks. The kind of mark you'd make if you were low to the ground, and making contact with the tree repeatedly. I crouched down and looked at them for a long time. My mother had said the something at the base of the tree had been there for a few weeks. But these marks were not a few weeks old. The wood around them had healed partially in the way that tree bark heals around an old wound. The edges have grown in slightly, and the surface is weathered. These marks were years old. Maybe many years. She had said. A few weeks. But whatever had made these marks had been coming to this tree for much longer than a few weeks. I went back inside the house. I told Patrice I was going to go through a few more of Mom's things. Patrice said okay and made more coffee and put on the radio, the way she does. I went to the bedroom. My mother's phone was in a Ziploc bag in the drawer of her nightstand, where the hospital had returned it with the rest of her effects. I'd never turned it on. I hadn't been able to. I turned it on. I'm going to stop right here for just a second. I know you don't want me to stop. But I want to say something directly, because this is the moment in this story where I need you to be here with me. It's me, Ryland Sawyer Hayes. This channel exists for stories like this one. Not the ones that are easy to tell. The ones that took a long time to be ready for. If you've been listening and you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. Hit that bell. Every Thursday, without fail. This is where these stories live. Because what was on her phone is what I've been working up to telling you since the beginning of this episode. Stay with me. Part 4. The 23. What she recorded and never sent. The phone still had a charge. I don't know why. It had been in that drawer for 3 years. But it turned on, and it asked me for a passcode I didn't know, and I tried her birthday, and it opened. The voicemail app was on the home screen. She had put it there herself, which made sense. She used voicemail more than most people use text messages. I opened it. There was a folder I'd never seen from the outside. On my phone, it had shown as a single notification, a single unsent message. From her phone, looking at the sending side of that same function, the folder was full, 23 messages, all addressed to my number, all marked unsent. I sat on the edge of her bed, and I looked at the list of them. The most recent was dated October 14th, 2020. The one I'd already heard. The one before that was dated August 3rd, 2020, 2 months earlier. I scrolled through the dates. They went back 1 per month, sometimes 1 every 6 weeks, sometimes 2 in a month, all the way to the oldest one, September 9th, 2017. 3 years before she died. She had started recording these unsent voicemails in September of 2017 and had kept recording them, one after another, for 3 years, and had never once sent a single one of them. She had sent me the regular ones. The ones about the garden and the neighbors and the magnesium, those came through fine to my phone, the way voicemails work. These 23 she had kept back, held in that unsent folder on her own phone, never delivered. I pressed play on the oldest one. Her voice, exactly as I remembered it. September 9th, 2017. I don't know if I'm ever going to send this one, so I'm just going to say what I want to say. There's something at the willow tree. Has been for a while now. I don't know what it is, and I don't have a better word for it than something. I've been watching it. It doesn't come past the tree line. And it doesn't come into the garden. I think it's been there longer than I realized. I'm handling it. I just wanted to tell you about it, and I couldn't figure out how to tell you out loud. She paused. You're going to be fine. I want you to know that first. Whatever this is, you're going to be fine. I'll make sure of it. I love you. Don't worry about calling back on this one. I sat on her bed in the October light coming through her bedroom window, and I listened to all 23 voicemails, one after another. I'm not going to tell you everything she said in them. Some of it is mine to keep, but I want to tell you the shape of them because the shape of them is the story. The earliest ones, from 2017 and 2018, were observational. She described what she saw with the same precision she brought to everything: location, timing, and behavior. What it did, what it didn't do. She had been watching it the way she watched everything she didn't yet understand, carefully, without panic, until she understood it well enough to act. The middle ones from 2019 were different. She had stopped describing and started managing. She referenced things she was doing, things she described only obliquely, that she felt were keeping it at the tree. She didn't explain what those things were. She didn't need to explain them to herself, and she wasn't ready to explain them to me. She just noted that they were working. The later ones from 2020 were the ones that stayed with me the longest. Because in the later ones, she started talking about what would happen after her. She was 74 years old. She wasn't sick. She hadn't been given any kind of diagnosis that she told us about. But she was thinking about after, the way older people do when they're honest with themselves about the math. And she was thinking about what would happen to the tree, to the property, to whoever came next. The second to last voicemail, recorded 3 weeks before she died, said, "I've done everything I know how to do for this place. I think it's stable. I think whoever comes after me will be all right as long as they respect the yard the way I've respected it. Don't do anything to the willow tree. I know that sounds strange. Just leave it alone. It doesn't want to be cut down, and it doesn't need to be. Let it stand. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this directly for 3 years, and I've never managed it. Maybe you'll find these someday. Maybe you won't. Either way, I wanted it said somewhere. I love you so much. I always have." 23 voicemails. 3 years of trying to tell me something she couldn't find the words to say out loud. Part 5. What I kept. After listening to all of them, I didn't listen to all 23 in one sitting. I made it through about 8 of them before I had to stop and go sit on the back porch with Patrice and let her make me another cup of coffee and not explain why I needed it. Patrice, to her credit, didn't ask. I finished the rest over the following week, back home in Memphis, 1 or 2 at a time in the evenings. I've thought a great deal about what to do with them. I've thought about whether to tell Patrice, who co-owns that property and who drives down there alone once a month. I've thought about whether to tell anyone. I've decided to tell you because that's what this channel is for. And I've decided not to tell you everything, because some of it is hers. The methods she used, The specific things she saw, the particular way she managed 3 years of something at the back of her yard, that's hers. She held it close for a reason. I'm going to hold that part close too. What I will tell you is this. In 23 voicemails across 3 years, my mother described watching something at the willow tree at the back of the family property. She managed it. She kept it from entering the yard. She kept it from coming near the house. She did this completely alone, without telling her children, without telling anyone, for 3 years. And in not one single voicemail, not one of those 23 recordings she made and kept and never sent, did she sound afraid. Resigned, sometimes. Tired, in the later ones. But not afraid. She was handling something. And she was handling it the way she handled everything. Quietly, competently, without making it anyone else's problem. She left me those recordings unsent because she hadn't found the right way to say it. And she kept recording anyway, for 3 years, because she needed somewhere to put it. The act of recording was enough. The words existed somewhere even if they hadn't reached me yet. They reached me. 3 years later, in a parking lot in Memphis, on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I still have the willow tree. I've been back to the property 4 times since that Saturday with Patrice. I go around the back of the yard. I look at the base of the tree. I haven't seen anything. But I follow her rule now. After dark, you come inside. I never thought to ask her why when I was growing up. I know why now. If you have voicemails from someone you've lost still sitting in your phone, or messages, or emails, or anything like that, I just want to say there's no timeline on when you'll be ready. I'm not telling you to listen to them. I'm just saying you're not alone in having them. Leave it in the comments if any of this found you tonight. It's me, Ryland Sawyer Hayes. I read everything. This is Red State Horror. I'll see you next Thursday.